You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Once again, a yearly tradition, the Leafs taking their talents outdoors for the annual outdoor practice presented by Bet365. This is Leafs Morning Take, the Monday edition. Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. What's going on, Rosie?
It is Monday. Does it feel like a Monday? Kind of feels like a Monday.
It does certainly feel like a Monday. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION. All in uppercase today. Our Super Chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and third in the world. You know why I know it's Monday?
Why?
Because on Sundays, I play beer league hockey. And we needed a
feeling
ringer yesterday. You know who got the call?
No.
Zacharias. Zach Phillips. I've been talking about it all season long. It's been a struggle for yours truly. So what do? I call Zach Phillips, and what do you know? 2-1 for the kid. Had a game yesterday. Zach put one on a tee for me, like 4 minutes in, backdoor, just tapping. I hammered it, and like the vision on the kid's incredible, man.
Oh, just slid in the factory buried as well. Hey,
I had two tucks, two and one yesterday.
Oh, you're talking about Zach Phillips, and then you said the kid had 2 and 1, and we're supposed to know that means you had 2 and 1.
Zach had like 17. No, I think we won like 6-3, but Zach had a healthy 4 or 5 points. But
so
there's nothing better than getting a ringer who's too damn good, but then playing with that ringer and having that chem. So was feeling good on Sunday, bud.
Well, I'm glad you guys had the chem. You bring it on the pods and you bring it on the ice. So it's a good little Sunday evening for you.
It was, who doesn't have the chem, who we can sort of relate to in Leafs Nation, is the Buffalo Bills. And granted, my mention since putting out that tweet last night about being able to relate being a Leafs fan, there's been some pushback by Bills fans. They're saying we win rounds. Well, last time I checked, you win one game, and then you can't win the big one. I mean, not to compare the two here, Rosie, but like Kansas City is not the Boston Bruins, but it's got that Bruins feel where it's like you know who you're up against, you know you can beat them. You just can't beat them, though.
Yeah, it's too bad. I think a lot of people are on the Josh Allen train there. By any measure, just seems like an unbelievable guy, easy to like, easy to cheer for. And City of Buffalo with their championship drought and the Bills being good for a while, but just running up against the Chiefs all the time. And to go back to the 90s, I mean, they lost 3 Super Bowls in a row. Like, I don't know if everybody knows that. It's absolutely devastating for that city and the way they get behind the Bills. And one was like a cold 30-yard shank on a extra point or field goal. Just devastating. I was watching that front to back. I thought they might have a chance, but man, the Chiefs just have something special. The chemistry they have, the way they set things up with and they just keep replacing the guys that it's unbelievable. Like, their numbers are getting out of control with their dominance. And I figured the Bills would have a rough time, and then they did. At the end of the day, Josh didn't do enough. They didn't do enough to win. They just didn't.
It's just like there's always an answer. Like, don't I always say that when the Leafs play Boston, there always seems to be an answer. There's always an answer for Mahomes. Like, it's sickening. And I can feel for Buffalo fans. And I've said that before on this podcast. Like, I don't really watch football. I remember watching as a kid with my old man and my brother. And the last like vivid memory of being a football fan was like Doug Flutie, because I'm Canadian, played in the CFL. But I remember watching the Music City Miracle, and I'm like, this franchise is cursed. Do you remember that game, like way back when, where they had a crazy lateral play in the final play and Tennessee beat the Bills in the playoffs? It was insane.
Yeah, it is kind of like the Leafs, where you go back and just say, here's a franchise with, a city that's desperate for a championship, a fan base that's desperate for a championship, and they have not been able to get it done. And they have this calamity of disappointments as you go back, decades. And it's similar in that regard, but tough for the city of Buffalo. I don't know. I think people were kind of have had enough of the Taylor Swift and the KC show. And I mean, that's what happens when you're on top of the mountain for so long. People turn on you and want to see you fall. It's human nature, I think, but not this year. Not yet.
Are you anti-dynasty guy? I think it's so cool. Like, I know people want to make their theories that the refs are working in unison with Patrick Mahomes, but we're witnessing greatness. Like the guy is already in the same vein as Tom Brady, as some of the best, Michael Jordan, like the goats of goats. And I think he should be in that conversation. But do you love the whole dynasty look?
I don't mind it. I don't know. I'm not one of those people. Like, I want to see, if a different team wins every year, then it's just, the specialness isn't really there. The memories aren't really there. But when you have like that dynasty, you could think the Islanders, you could think the Oilers. When Pittsburgh was good, you could call it a modern day dynasty. The Blackhawks in that 2010 era where they were, what would they win 3-5 or something like that? Like it's pretty cool when you see someone, an organization put something together that's that special. And I have no problem with the KC Chiefs and doing special things. I think it's cool. It's history, and it's that big mark on the line of Super Bowl champions. You look back and you say, "Oh yeah, I remember that. Wow, was that ever special?" And yeah, Mahomes is he's in Brady's breath already with what he's accomplished. He's like 29 years old. It's unbelievable, man. I don't mind watching that at all.
I will lie. It's just supremely sickening as a Maple Leafs fan. And you look at some of these markets and like they just keep getting back to the championship and winning. Like, again, this is part of the reason why Toronto hates Boston. How many championships does that city have in the last like 5 years alone? Like, all we're asking for is just one. I know we got the Raptors, but just one. And I think a lot of Leafs fans would concur they'd be good dying after. Like that's how important it is, like finally getting that championship. And then you look around, like Kansas City, for example, it's like an embarrassment, like of riches. Like every year they're there and they win. Philadelphia too. It always seems like Philadelphia's in the Super Bowl too.
Yeah, some cities just haven't, man. I've been, since I got traded to Toronto, I've been thinking and wondered what would it be like if this city won a Stanley Cup. Like, what would they do? Like, would it be, I don't know what, if it would be different or underwhelming or overwhelming, or if there'd be bloody some kind of riots going on. I don't know what it would be like, but like you say, there's enough generations that are alive still that have and passed on too. Like, people would do this with their grandfather and grandmother, and it's just been so long, and there's so much want there. It would be very interesting to see what actually happened if that town took one down.
And as mentioned, I was there for like the celebration when the Raptors won. A bit different because it's a national thing, but man, that was wild. And I could only imagine, again, Leafs Nation is just so big. I know you talk about the Raptors in that vein, it's an entire country. Leafs Nation is so big. And just one day, as a Leafs fan, would love to see it. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. By the way, we will address that Mikko Rantanen trade, but I wanted to do an entire segment on it because you got to correlate everything to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that's coming up later on the podcast. I did want to address somebody, YCF Baby, what he just wrote in the chat. Producer Vic's wedding is being talked about a lot on some of the other Leafs pods. This guy's a big deal.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
I want to see some pics. I've been getting heat about not being able to attend, but that's not really my fault. It's a destination I can't make it to on that date, Vic, but I'm looking forward to some of the pics and vid. And obviously it's gaining traction, this wedding.
It is gaining major traction coming up on Saturday. Found out Zach Phillips and his wife are going to be there in attendance. And by wife, I mean girlfriend. He's obviously, the guy's an absolute weapon. Obviously, he's got a better half. But I wanted to ask you, did I end up FaceTiming you this week? I don't even remember. Did I do it?
Definitely a missed call. Let me see here.
I think I did it, man.
Yeah, no, it's a phone call. It was a phone call.
Nice.
Saturday night.
Okay.
At 12:14 a.m. for me. So
2:14. Okay, perfect. So, okay. We're keeping in line. That's probably going to happen at producer Vic's wedding as well. So I talked about it off the top. The Leafs are outdoors. Do you have a chance to do one of those?
Yeah, we did. We did it in Central Park in New York City, and it was pretty cool. Yeah, the ice was garbage, and you get the eye black on, and it was the whole middle part of the ice was like a puddle. So it's like, you talk about trying to have a practice that you get something out of, but then you get out there and the sun's just beating down on this warm ice, and it was almost impossible. So you're saucing it over the puddles and stuff, and you kind of chuckle. And chalk it up to what it is, but it's kind of fun to do that. And some people that normally wouldn't be able to get close to the team and stuff like that get to come around and say hi, which is kind of neat too. It's just a nice change of scenery.
It is. In support of Sick Kids KPG, thank you so much for the super chat. I would drop to my knees and weep if the Leafs won. What would happen? What would you do, Rosie, if the Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup? I don't even know what I would do. Like I don't know. I'd cry probably. I don't know.
Well, I'd like to think I'd be flying in for it, and
I would hope so.
doing
I would
some,
hope so.
doing some live shows, this, that, whatever. I don't know.
I could picture you at Greta just soiling a couple. What are those things you drink? Like half beer and half like
half
a beer
clam.
and clam.
Not
Yeah.
not even half clam, just beer with a shot of clam, and it's
Okay,
nice,
there you go.
tasty,
Yeah.
tasty unit. But I remember in 2010 when Canada won the Olympics, I was in Toronto and I went down to Dundas there, and it was rocking pretty heavily, and I think it would be that probably times 5. I just wonder when it would end. Like, would it be a 3-day affair? Like, could traffic move through the city? I hope it would be something like really crazy where they made the most of it, because God, they've been waiting a long time.
They have. We got a message from T Flight 10 minutes in. Let's talk about the weekend, boys. Got comments on that. I want to talk about Chris Tanev playing for Team Canada. Do you want to pass that, Rosie?
Yeah, well, no. I mean, Pietrangelo's going to take the option here. He's kind of the first guy. I wonder if that's going to be a theme of guys kind of pulling the chute. I mean, it would be an absolute disaster, nightmare for the organizers of Four Nations if guys start pulling the pin. Like, it's weird. I mean, to take that break at this point in the season for someone who wants to be a contender and wants to heal themselves up is probably pretty attractive. But at the same time, if people want to play in this and it could mean something, it's just a little bit different because we don't know what this tournament is or what it means or what the intensity level is going to be like or what it could turn into. But I hope it's not a domino effect of a lot of guys pulling the chute. But for that specifically, I think if they're going to replace Pietrangelo, you're looking at the Dougie Hamiltons and the Aaron Ekblads and the Bouchards and those high point guys, those power play guys with the shots from the point and whatever. And as good as Tanev is, it's are you going to replace Pietrangelo with a Tanev? A stay at home, quiet, shot blocking, put him out there in the last minute of any period of any game guy. It depends what Team Canada wants to do and who do we want to replace? Do we want to replace this guy with the same type of player? Then I don't think it's going to be Chris Tanev, but he's certainly on the market, I would think.
I got a warning for you. Not even a warning, a disclosure. You know who's going to be? It's a guy in the Los Angeles Kings, Drew Doughty.
I think so, eh?
Oh, yeah. There's
He's
a
up
reason
there.
why they haven't named a replacement. You don't think they knew this 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
Drew Doughty's
maybe.
supposed to come back, I think, this week, maybe even tonight for LA. And Doughty healthy would have made this team. So that's why I think, if it's a Doughty, why can't it be a Chris Tanev? And I think, honestly, and this is me taking the Leaf sunglasses off, he deserves it. The guy, I was watching the game with a buddy on the weekend. I'm like, the guy is so reliable. There's not a drop in play from game to game. And I think that's what makes Chris Tanev so damn good is his consistency and the brand and the style and the way he plays. I knew a lot about the player. Obviously, I watch a lot of hockey, but to watch him in the blue and white, man, and in this market specifically, he's just come as advertised so far.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I just like watching him. I like when he's painted into a corner and he has, he doesn't have numbers around him for support and he's getting closed in on by the opposition. And I just go, watch this, watch this, watch this. And he'll just very calmly just find a way to get the puck on the stick of one of his teammates every bloody time, like clockwork. And I think it goes unnoticed because he is so calm and poised about it and he does it so consistently. It doesn't really seem like anything wild, but if you just ISO cam him and watch, there's all kinds of times throughout a game where you're just like, geez, I can't tell you how hard that is to do as a D-man running out of room, being the last line of defense before your goaltender and still just making those sweet little plays. He does like clockwork, and yeah, he would be an awesome addition to Team Canada. But like you said, I think there might be some guys that they can help out with that offensive output as well. That'll be maybe a bit in front of them.
Mackenzie Weegar also, I think, involved in that conversation. But if I'm handicapping things, I think it's Drew Doughty's job if he can prove that he's healthy and back from that broken ankle. Donnie does dishes with the observation of the year. Tanev isn't a top 10 D-man in the league. Thank you for that, Donnie. We appreciate that.
That's Donnie does dishes.
Yeah, he's just
Yes,
bringing the heat. Yeah.
But we're not talking about top 10 team in the league. We're talking about Team Canada and replacing Pietrangelo. So not sure
Yes.
why it would mention that. But Doughty, like 50 points last year for Doughty as a team, he's still good. Like
He's sick, dude.
he
Like,
doesn't slow down, and he hasn't played this year injured. And I think it actually would make sense for him to say, yeah, I've been out X. I want to get some reps in. I'm fresh as hell. If you're healthy, then go in there and get your reps in. It'll be pretty high intense competition. There'll be lots of good players around you. I think it'd just as opposed to Pietrangelo, who probably needs a rest and a break and some rehab and a breather. It's probably the opposite for Drew Doughty, who would like to get some reps in and get his legs under him and
true.
be prepped for, a bit of a push here coming down the straight.
I love how Pietrangelo like's not playing because of injury. Then he's like high stepping out there for Vegas the next game. It's like, well, which one is it? But we know he's got a lot going on behind the scenes with the fam the last year or so. So I get it. I mean, I understand you got to humanize the situation sometimes, and it's okay. A pretty decent trade if you're trading Pietrangelo for Drew Doughty, if that's in fact what it ends up being. Nonetheless, Rosie, we're getting set for the first ever TLN Nation vacation. Thursday, March 20th to Sunday, March 23rd. It's promising to be a trip of a lifetime. In addition to attending the Toronto-Nashville game at Bridgestone Arena on the Saturday night, you'll also get a chance to see us do some live podcasting at Love and Exile Winery and Bar. You also don't know who's going to stop by in that process. We're offering 2 packages, one with flights, $24.50 plus tax, one without, $12.99 plus tax. Hotel rooms are double occupancy, and you get to hang out with Jay Rosehill too, right?
If that's something you're into. No, it's pretty exciting. It's coming up. We're booking flights and hotels, and we're getting things. We're putting pen to paper on this, and it's starting to happen. So that means it's creeping up to that time. Jump on board, man. Take your own flight if you want, or book through us. At the end of the day, it's pretty reasonable to go down there and watch an NHL game and be there for 3 nights and fly down and do all the stuff we're going to do. It's going to be an experience, and we're pretty excited for it. If you're thinking about it, stop thinking about it and just pull the trigger.
I like that. For more information on how to book, head on over to nationgear.ca. That is nationgear.ca, or check out the link in our show bio. Life's too short for ordinary vacations. All right, should mention later on today, we talked about the Mikko Rantanen deal. Again, we're going to do a whole segment around that coming up after our game recap. But Eric Tulsky, the GM of the Carolina Hurricanes, is set to guest on the sheet with Jeff Merrick today at 3:15 Eastern time. There's the promo right there. So make sure you check that out. That is going to be something special to have the balls to pull out a move like that. So I can't wait to hear what Eric Tulsky has to say on the sheet later on today at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Rosie, coming up on February 15th, the Leafs Nation will be hosting a watch party at Greta Bar on King Street West as Canada and United States get together at the Four Nations. We've got ticket giveaways, signed memorabilia, trivia, and T-shirt tosses happening all night long. Tickets are just $10. If you're feeling frisky, we're also offering a VIP option for $40, which includes a Greta burger, a beverage of your choice, and a game card to play some great arcade games over there at Greta. Doors open 2 hours before puck drop. Grab your ticket today. Again, also available at nationgear.ca. Greta Bar, let the games begin. And the games are about to begin here, Rosie. People asking for a recap of the Battle of Ontario. And for some reason, the Sens just have Toronto's number right now.
I know they're starting to kind of fall into those little trap games and lose the games that on paper they're supposed to win. Again, if you look down the line of the injuries, though, you could start to, I don't want to say excuses, but you could find understandings on why that's happening. But at the end of the day, this lack of scoring and inability to score is a problem. Like, how many times have we said it? You have built your team and situated your money in the hands of high offensively talented players. So why the hell is the goal scoring a problem? And why is the power play terrible? Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's a Leafy thing. Once again, we built a really highly offensive team, yet we can't score any goals. Like, what are you talking about? It just doesn't make sense. It gets frustrating. but you can't really expect, their guys' numbers are good. Look where Nylander is in the standings. Look where Marner is in the standings.
Mhm.
Austin's numbers are good since he's been healthy. John Tavares is having like the career year when he's healthy. You can't just you can't put that much on X amount of guys. You have to get that depth scoring. And McMahon buried last time, and you need the Domies of the world and the Robertsons, and you need that depth scoring and Lorenz to step up once in a while. Which it's just fucking. I don't know what is the answer here. Why are they scoring one goal every game all of a sudden?
Yeah, they're very top heavy. Like to me, there's the same old issue, and they look like that Leafs team who just can't score that big goal in the playoffs. Granted, again, it's a process. I can't make a full analysis on this system until we see how it looks in the playoffs. But I understand, like, that's the big war right now in Leafs Nation. Like, would you prefer Sheldon Keefe's open style brand where it's like 6-5 hockey, or are you okay with maybe losing 2-1 sometimes the way we've seen this season? I thought there was a compelling stat from Joseph Zita, who does some good work over at the Leafs Nation over the weekend. It was the 19th time this season, Rosie, the Maple Leafs have scored 2 or fewer goals in a game. Their record in those 19, 2-16-1. So we've talked about it a lot. The magic number is 3. When the Leafs score 3 or more, they win hockey games.
Yeah, that's right. And that makes sense. And I don't know, it's because like what happened in the past under Keefe's Leafs, where they go out and sometimes win 6-5, but then in the playoffs, they can't score a bloody goal.
Yeah.
So is it going to be flip flop this year? Is their defensive? I think they're better defensively. I think their D are way better. I don't think anyone could argue with that. Their goaltending has really been solid this year. And I cannot wait for Stoli to get back and see if he can pick up where he left off. But hopefully that is the cream that rises to the top in the playoffs, and that they're shutting teams down and frustrating teams and making them abandon their system, and they can win a 2-1 hockey game or win a 3-2 hockey game. We will see. It's just that big question mark, man. And this organization has they've tried to do different things and put different things in place, but the one constant is these 4 studs that have the money, that have the talent, and they are producing right now, and they are doing what you could ask of them. What more do you want out of Nylander? And what more do you want out of Marner? Look at his numbers and his points. He's doing his job. He's being defensive. There's not one glaringly obvious problem here. It's just sometimes they get stuck in the mud. And like you said, sometimes if they're going to play this system and try to fix the faults that they've had in the past, are they going to lose a 2-1 hockey game? Well, then so be it, because no one gives a shit about January 25th or whatever it
What
was.
was that? Nobody gives a shit about what?
About January 25th loss to, like, it doesn't really, it's not, we're the only organization that breaks down this loss and tries to pull our hair out and reinvent the wheel and what changes need to happen. Like, shit, you're playing more D style. You're committed to your own end a little bit more. You might lose 2-1, and you might go through a couple of little splashes where Domi isn't going and guys aren't going. And if you don't get 2-1 from every one of your big guys, you might not win that game. So be it. At least it's different in my mind.
I thought you paused there because you're going to say regular season, but I think you stopped just short of that. You
Well, I
talked
didn't go
about
that
late game.
hardcore. Regular season matters, but if you drop a 2-1 game to Ottawa in the end of January, I don't think it's something to be, to start reinventing the wheel over.
Yeah, I was pretty stunned when Zach was telling me. I didn't get a chance to check out the Leafs Nation After Dark on Saturday, but he was telling me people were like pulling their hair out. I'm like, come on. Like, I don't think they played that bad, which we'll get to. But in support of sick kids, KPG sends us another super chat. The Ottawa game was a typical Toronto playoff series game. The hungrier team gets dirty. The violence on the ice escalates. The core 4 disappear. I wouldn't go that far, Rosie. All in all, I thought the Leafs played pretty well. Like, obviously, the desperation was going to be there from the Ottawa Senators. They had been struggling mightily. I hope you auto-betted that Claude Giroux anytime point, because it's like it's Halloween candy at this point. Got it at plus money, by the way. But the difference in the game was like an ugly, leafy type bounce, like Shane Pinto scoring that goal. But I was okay with it. I know losing stinks, but like it's not like the Leafs shit the bed. Like I thought they showed up for the game.
Yeah, there's a lot more frustrating ways to lose a game, which we have seen. They didn't play too terribly bad. They scored the first goal and showed up on time, and it was just kind of one of those games. And it's hard to describe if you play an 82 game season all the time with different teams. And I've done that, and it's sometimes you get into those deadlock games where you're doing what you're supposed to. You're kind of following the game plan, and nothing's really happening. And then some bullshit bounce over a guy's head, over off his knee, and then
You
over
see,
the
that was
goalie's
so
head, and
ugly.
then tucks. Like,
Yeah.
give me a break. You
Yeah.
you chalk it up as what a bunch of bullshit. That's not going to happen every night. If we have our game to that level, you know, more often than not, we should pull out those games. It was one of those games where you're not going to win them all. Chalk it up. Yeah, that's frustrating. But as far as the core four disappearing and them getting bullied out of the building, I didn't see it as that being the case, which I have seen before. I just didn't think it was indicative of this game in particular. And it just kind of one of those bullshit games where you roll your eyes and say, "Are you kidding me?" When you get into those seasons where it is that long, you're going to have those once in a while. And I don't want to let them off the hook, but I'm not also, there's nothing to point to say this was atrocious.
Yeah, I'm not going to make a big story of it. I thought that the big guys were okay in the game. I think it's no secret they're looking for offense. It's been a story all season long. I think when you take Nyes out, you take Tavares out, even a guy like Pacioretty, those are 3 top 9 fixtures, I would say, with this roster right now. Things are looking bleak. But again, it's the same old song and dance where it's like this team is so top heavy, and it's because of how much they pay for guys. And again, are you going to recommit to that? Again, we're going to have that conversation, but I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt until the playoffs, because I think you're right. Like, maybe this is a whole process where they learn how to play that brand, and then they get to the playoffs and they're already there where other teams are chasing it, if that makes sense.
I mean, that's the hope, right? That's the hope, the Craig Berube effect of kind of shore up some better habits and create an identity that's more suited to winning in the playoffs, because
Yeah.
the habits and the identity that they've had in the past has got them regular season success over 82 games over that long grind. Those guys and those players and their talents will chip away, and you will get the points, and you will win the games and win in overtime and just chip away at the points, and it'll look good on paper. But like we talk about the habits and whatnot, those in a 7-game series, they catch up to them. And the way they play and the way they're supported and the surrounding cast around them, they got bullied out of series. They got run out of the building. They became ghosts. They tried to play perimeter hockey. There was too many turnovers. They let in too many goals. There wasn't a commitment to defense. And then on top of it, they go cold in scoring, which, what do you want to talk about them being chokers or not clutch performers? I mean, you could start having that conversation if you want. I don't feel like it right now, but you could start to point to whatever you want. But now there's a different, I mean, people that don't know a team might not notice it too well. It's pretty subtle, but just the way they are playing is more conducive to, clogging up the middle and keeping things to the outside and not making turnovers and, higher percentage plays and not making the high risk ones that end up going odd man rushes the other way. And for the most part, that's been pretty damn good. You got to let your boys cook in the offensive zone, which I think Chief does. These guys are free to do whatever the hell they want to score the goals, and their power play is not helping them by any stretch of the imagination this year. It's just about getting it together. And I like the idea that now that Chief and Dubas and those guys are gone, it's like, Keefe, I like the idea that, hey, I think that these habits that they have created are going to help them in the playoffs. Do I know that? Nobody does, but I think it's on the right path. And again, we will see, man. There's just nothing else you can say, but we will see.
I know. It's just hope. Like, it's just like, get me to the playoffs, and then we're going to find out over a 7-game span if this team is different. We said that to finish off last year. I thought the interesting thing too about that game, they pretty much rolled 3 lines. I like the idea of giving Jacob Quillen his NHL debut with the story of his family moving to Ottawa, and like, he got a home cooked meal and all that. But you make his debut and you put him on a line with Ryan Reeves, like with all due respect, again, I love Revo, but like, you're not really setting up the kid, if you will, in that game. He played 521. He had 1 hit. I want to get your thoughts initially. I know you played with Nick Cousins, but he is known as one of the bigger pests in this league. Do you have any issue? I know after the game, Craig Berube was saying that should have been a knee penalty or a penalty of some sort on Cousins. How'd you see it?
I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah.
Look at Cuzzy. Pause it right
Yeah.
there. He's going for a hit, and Quillen's the one that moves to the right, trying to avoid a hit. Like, Quillen jumped to the right, leaving his legs in the lane that his body was in, where the guy's going to go give him body. Look at Cuzzy. You think Cuzzy did anything wrong? because he's going to make a body check and Quillen pulls to the right. It happens every time there's a goddamn kneeing penalty. A guy's jumping out of the freaking way, trying to avoid a hit, which is fine. You can sidestep guys and shit, but if your legs are left in the lane where the body contact was going to happen, they're what's going to take the contact, and you can get your knee hurt. And I don't agree with that with Chief whatsoever. I think coaches always just are annoyed when a knee happens and they blame the other guy, but to a T, go back to the World Juniors and everything that's happened this year. There's tons of kneeing penalties. Guys don't take a freaking hit anymore. They try to sidestep it, and it leaves your knees there. And who's the one that's hurt? It's Cuzzy. He's hurt, and it sounds like pretty seriously, like he might have tore his knee or something like that. And I think you never know whose knee's going to go when there's a knee on knee contact, but it's dangerous. It always has been. It used to be submarining and sticking your knee out to get the guy because you're missing him. But more often than not, look at all the plays and watch the guy that's getting called the kneer just stay in his lane and brace for contact, and the guy jumps out of the way, and you go through the guy's knees. Just because you go through a guy's knees doesn't mean you're at fault. It drives me nuts. Every time we see a guy hurt his knee, they're like, that's a kneeing penalty. You should have got a penalty. What did the guy do that got his knees clipped? Jump out of the freaking way? You're putting yourself at risk. I hate it when there is no responsibility on people to protect themselves.
Regardless of the disdain and the hatred for a player, I also wasn't a big fan of some tweets from Leafs fans being like, good, he got hurt. Like, I know people are not big Nick Cousins fans, but I could never wish a serious injury, pertaining to any athlete, even if I hate them, man. Like, I just think that's poor taste. Like, it's, again, I think the issue here, and I tend to agree with you, and obviously Berube's going to come to bat for his player, but it's more because I think it was Nick Cousins than it was a cheap hit, because I think it was just coincidental. Like, I think they just ran into each other. That's the read. I mean, like, it's a fast game too.
I know, because he's not doing anything out of the ordinary there. Because he is, by all accounts, a good guy, which I guess if you're a fan, you could care less. But even the way he plays hockey, like, how do you hate anybody based on how they play a sport? Like, don't you understand his competitive spirit and his willingness to engage and try to get under the skin of other people? Like, can't you at least respect that? Like, to hate someone and hope they get hurt? Like, what a loser. Like, what are you losing? What are you missing in your life where you wish injury on an athlete who's just out there to play the game hard and try to win? And at the end of the day, it's not life or death, but you're happy that he's torn something and has to go through. Like, what a loser you would have to be. I don't subscribe to that whatsoever. Maybe it's because I know the guy, but if it's anyone else, I think I would feel the same way. And it's just because it is Cuzzy and he has a little rat-like history, no doubt. I loved playing with him. It was absolutely hilarious when he got cooking, what he would do to the other teams. It would make me laugh. It was so rat-like and it was effective, and they would spend half of their energy worrying about Cuzzy while the rest of the team went and took care of business. It was hilarious. And it sucks that Leafs fans of every organization do that, but it sucks when the fan of the team that you kind of support pulls that kind of garbage.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Tammy writes in, Nick, those kind of fans probably cry after getting a paper cut. Very well said. Very well said.
Tammy pipes in from the top rope there.
Yeah, from the top rope. JC writes in, Rosie is bang on. Players do not know how to take a hit anymore.
They 100% don't. Since World Junior, all these knees, man, I'm like, why is everyone just looking at if the guy makes contact with the player's knee? Who gives a shit? Look at what happened, what transpired, what was the angle the guy was taking, what was the perpetrator trying to do? Make a body check? That's allowed. And then what does Buddy do? He sees it last minute, goes, oh shit, I don't want to get hit, jumps out of the way, leaving his legs in the lane, and they get friggin' piled up into each other. And the guy lays there and grabs his knee, and everyone, use your head, take a hit, get against the glass, butt your shoulder up, do what you got to do to take a hit. But no, all these pussies are jumping out of the way and then laying on the ice and then acting like someone did them wrong. It makes me sick. Are you not allowed to go to hit a guy anymore in case he jumps out of the way and you clip his knee? Go take a hike. I'm getting fired up over that. I don't know. I've seen a whole bunch of knees this year, and almost to a T, it's the same bloody story.
I'm always proud and know I'm doing my job correctly when I get you going.
I was snoozing the first half of the game. Now
you were. Yeah. I'll be honest. I had to get you cooking a bit. I knew that hit would get you cooking. A couple fact checkers here. Sadat Kolofsky. Sorry if I messed up your name, but Bills lost 4 in a row in the 90s. Producer Vic did tell us that in the chat. We had moved on.
It was 4
Yeah,
in a
that's
row.
crazy. That's crazy, man.
4 years in a row, 40% of a decade, your team goes to the Super Bowl.
Wild.
Unbelievable team. A
Yeah.
dynasty franchise. Like, you have all the pieces. You get to the Super Bowl every year. You don't have a
Oh,
friggin'
man.
thing to show about it. Can you imagine? Like, that is like the Leafs getting the Stanley Cup final 4 years in a row, and they don't win a bloody cup. Like, it would just be haunting. You'd rather be garbage than that, wouldn't you? After that much pain, 4 in a
Yeah.
row?
Honestly, like, you would, but if the Leafs ever went to a cup, I think they would win because they're that type of team where it's like their demons have been slayed. Like the cup, they'd probably win in a sweep. That it would be the Leafy thing is they just roll through the opponent. I don't know. Invictus Maneo writes in ice cold takes. Some people in the chat, I won't lie, not big fans of your take on the Cousins hit, but again, they're protecting their Leafs.
Well, go be a homer then and protect your Leafs. I look at it as a hockey play, which was which. Like, you think
Yeah.
Cousins went to blow through the guy's knee? He's in a lane and Quillen jumps to the right and completely deviates from his lane at the last second. Like, what's to argue about? I don't really get that take. Devious Maximus Decimus, whatever your name is.
It was that wasn't him. Maxentius Decimus. It wasn't him who wrote that in.
It was a different one that sounded like that though.
Yeah. We've got some great names in the chat as per usual. You guys are killing it. But yeah, that was sort of my major takeaway from the game. It was honestly a bit of a sleeper. Like low event hockey is the calling card of Craig Berube. We have seen that throughout this season. But again, just in the fashion they lost, where I thought the Leafs were buzzing in the third period. They were the better team, and just the bounce. The Leafs never seem to get that fortuitous bounce off 17 skates and a shoulder and a knee and you win the game, do they?
Well, we did with like Lorenz was going to the
Yeah.
net. Puck comes up and he lifts his knee. It goes off his hockey pants and goes in the net. And they say no goal because he like kicked it, or I don't even know what the call was. This one was clearly lift up my knee and bonk it into the net, and it wasn't even considered. I do not understand that because I thought it was identical to the Lorenz goal that got disallowed earlier in the season. Do you agree?
It was a bit different. If I recall, there was a kicking motion involved, right?
With Lorenz?
Yeah, there was something that I think it was a hand pass or a kicking motion. And I'm sure somebody in the chat will correct me on this, but I think it was like it was pretty blatant. But I know what you mean. Like it felt similar. It felt similar.
I felt like the puck was falling and he hacky sacked it right into the net. I thought that wasn't allowed.
Yeah. Vic saying he directed the puck in. We're gonna have to have them side by side to make like an official ruling if they were the same type of play. But nevertheless, just watching that go in, I'm like, are you serious? And then I see like you get that glimmer of hope because you see Marner's reaction and I think Wool's reaction. And I thought it was going to be a high stick and it was nowhere close to a high stick. And then you're like, oh, maybe he kicked it in. It's like, damn. And you knew, I don't know about you. I knew right there that the game was over. Like I knew the Leafs weren't going to tie it up after that.
Stranger things happen, but it is
I
true.
guess.
Like it is low event hockey, but
Yeah.
it's not wild 7-6 wins where it's just back and forth craziness, but those are fun to watch for entertainment value. But when you care about this team playing better hockey and being a better hockey team, this is the way to do it. And that's in the fact that when they used to have a lead, man, no lead was safe. I mean, they could blow a
Mhm.
3-goal lead in one period like clockwork. The looks on their faces as it's falling apart, you could just read it and see it, and you could time it, and it would happen all the time. It doesn't happen anymore. They're tighter, they're smarter, they have a better way about going about their business, which is more professional, I think, and less street hockey like. And I think it's gonna hopefully pay off for them down the stretch. But one of the problems with it is if you're you got to still score. If you're gonna be that low event hockey game, one of those stupid little bounces like that could end up being the game winner, and there's only 3 goals scored in the night. It's how it goes.
Mario Kart writes in, ask Rosie what he would do if Cousins hit him like that.
I would have leveled him right in the center ice because he came to hit me, and I would have buried him on the ice, and we would have had body contact. I wouldn't have jumped. I wouldn't have deviated from the lane when I realized there was a guy there, which you can do, but you risk leaving your legs there. You got to pump your legs out too. You got to step quick and get your legs out of the way and make the guy miss you. But when you do it last minute, your legs are going to be there. I never jumped out of the way, and I never got kneed. I never jumped out of the way. I braced for impact and took the hit, gave the hit, try to reverse the hit, use the guy's force against him. I never jumped out of the way because I didn't want to hyperextend flamingo my knee and tear the shit out of everything and be out for 8 weeks and have knee problems the rest of my life. Just take the hit. It's easier. I'm not saying what Quillen did was awful or terrible. I'm just saying Cousin just went to hit the guy and he was all of a sudden moved from the lane and his legs were still there. It's just stop doing that. I would have taken the hit.
Michael Dix writes in, what would you do, Nick? Well, I'm so shit at hockey, I'd probably fall before I get to Cousins. But I don't know. Like I always defer to you, A, because you played in the league, and B, because the game's so fast. And that's sort of my big issue with people on social media. It's like they're so quick to make an analysis. It's like, okay, well, you be at ice level, you see how quick, how split second you have to make that decision. So that's why I always defer to the guy who played in the fucking league, you know?
Well, it is incredibly fast out there. The TV doesn't do it justice. Things happen very fast, and players are more scared now than they've ever been. Look at the league. They're softer. They're
Look
more
at the
scared.
Leafs.
They're less tough.
Yeah.
These people in the league are just that way, and they shy away from that stuff and they try to avoid it. And they turn their back on a guy instead of taking the hit and absorbing it. They jump out of the way instead of taking the hit and absorbing it, and it leads to more injuries. It's clear as day. Watch how many times a D-man gets pasted from behind where he turns his numbers at the last minute. Guys can't stop on a dime. The super slow-mo from 10 different angles does no justice to it out there. The league is so fast. Guys are moving like crazy. They are hyper specialized athletes that can, change their angle and do everything so fast. And they're on you, but they're still human beings with mass and inertia. And when you're right beside a guy, they can't stop. And if you turn your numbers to him at the last second, you're going to get pasted. Same with jumping out of the way. What do you want Cousins to do differently? Like, what did he do wrong? What do
Yeah.
you want? Did he hang his knee out when the guy was clearly beating him and just put his knee into the other guy's lane and blow up his knee? No, he was going. They were going to be body to body, and then all of a sudden they weren't because Quillen moved. Like, that's just protect yourselves out there.
You do have one backer. John Gallagher writes in, Rosie fighting McGrattan is enough for me, has unlimited hall pass. There you go.
Couple
There you
times
go.
that big beast. Yeah, that wasn't
That
ideal,
big
Big
beast.
Mac, but thanks for the support.
Invictus Mineo, your boy, who called it an icy take. And I get it. I like, all sides of a conversation. Two things can be true. Rosie is right, and Cousins is also dirty. That's fair.
Yeah, you could say that's true for sure.
That's
Cousins
fair.
is a rat out there, but I was just defending like hating him. Like hating is a pretty strong word, and then being glad he's injured. That's pretty aggressive to another human being, whether he plays the game on the edge like a rat or not. But yeah, two things can be right.
In support of sick kids, SEO Saganum, one of our favorites here at the Leafs Nation, sends us this super chat. I sometimes can't even prevent a shart in time from becoming something worse. It sucks to see fans who haven't played judging a split-second error.
It's what it is, right? The super slow-mo and being a homer to your team and being biased towards one side or the other. It jumbles a lot of people's opinions and takes. And I just try to be, I'll rip on the Leafs for making the mistake all day long. I just call a spade a spade. If it is what it is, I try to use my best judgment and not be a homer. But I mean, I get it when you're a lifetime diehard supporter of X team, and then pretty much you're going to see everything they do with rose-colored glasses. I think that's pretty normal, but you're going to get those takes and those wild ones where it's like, dude, what game were you watching? And that's fair, I guess.
Fair enough. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I did want to get to the blockbuster Mikko Rantanen trade on Friday because naturally, I think 3 seconds after the trade, I did tweet out, what does this mean for Mitch Marner and the Toronto Maple Leafs? First and foremost, your general initial impression that was a monster, Daddy.
Yeah, it was. It's just a monster player in Rantanen. And, it's weird now because it seems like they had talks and everything. And obviously Colorado decided we're too far apart. We don't have the money to spend, and we're not willing to spend the money on this guy when we already have the McCarrs and the McKinnons of the world. And they moved on and they said, well, we're done with him this season. We're not going to have him anymore, but we're going to see what we can get back for a player of that caliber. You do not want to lose them for free. And to get Natchez back, I mean, that's pretty solid. He's got a bit of term left there, and you can get some out of him. He's make, what is he making, 6.5 or something? That's probably half of what you'd have to get Rantanen for, although Rantanen's a better player, no question, like a perennial 100-point guy. But and now Rantanen's kind of saying, well, geez, I was blindsided. I think I would have taken a discount, all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, the Colorado Avalanche, that's their decision to make, and they decided to move on and take what they could for the guy. That's the bed they're going to have to live in. And why exactly, all the details of how they got to that, no one's ever going to know. We're not in that situation. But blockbuster move, no doubt. I actually think Colorado's getting away pretty good, considering they must have thought there was no way they were going to re-sign him.
For sure. And I think it was kind of interesting too with the whole internal cap thing. Like, I really respect that. They're like, right now, nobody's making more than Nathan MacKinnon, who I believe is at 12.6. You know, Cale Makar, the next contract, I think, is 2 years away. He's obviously going to get a jump in pay. The salary cap's going to be higher. I get that, but I don't mind that. I also think it's easier to make a trade like this, Rosie, when you've won a Stanley Cup in the last couple of years and there's less pressure. There's still pressure with that team. You still have guys you know, in the core of their careers, guys like Nathan MacKinnon. But it's more like take a one step back, 2 steps forward, right? When you look at this approach, it was either do this, make a trade in general for Rantanen, or just use him as an own rental and lose him in free agency if you're not prepared to pay him. I think the crazy thing about this whole thing is the negotiation on the initial contract for Rantanen. All he had was a 9-team no trade. When you compare that to some guys, all the guys in the Maple Leafs got full no movement clauses. Like, that's the sidebar story for me, is I Rantanen only could pick 9 teams he didn't want to go to.
Yeah, I know. You'd think that the organizations would be a little bit more like, when you're giving out these contracts, these guys are massive contracts. And yeah, I don't mind a modified no trade clause like that. Like, hey, I'm not going to this shithole. I couldn't even
Exactly.
imagine living there. I'm not playing for this organization. I can't even imagine doing that. I get that, but as far as just like, why not just hold out? You're giving, if you're giving a guy the bag and the max term and everything else, can you not just, do you have to give him that too and make sure you're completely hamstrung? It does make it frustrating, but a guy like, there you go, there's an example. Rantanen only had a 9-team no trade clause. Okay, we can work around that. There's 32 teams. But yeah, I mean, at the end of these contracts of the big ones, it's tough when you have absolutely no power over your own franchise because you've given all of the power to the player. I mean, you already give them the money in the term. Try to hold on to some power yourself for down the road. And Dubas did absolutely not do that. And it just makes it difficult at the end of these contracts. But, you know, I don't think, like, you like the way they're not giving him more than MacKinnon. He's not worth more than MacKinnon, but, and I'm not saying this is the situation, but if you sign an 8-year deal on the first year and it's for X, and say you take a little bit longer term for a little bit less AAV, by the end of that contract, if someone else who's maybe a number 2 or 3 guy on your team, he's going to surpass you. Like, Makar is going to surpass MacKinnon. Doesn't mean he's better or more valuable, but that's just the way that the world works with inflation and with caps coming up and everything else. It's not like the best player on your team has to be the highest paid throughout the entirety of a contract. There's going to be some overlap there.
Yeah, for sure. And look, the situation, I think, is a lot different, like, pertaining to Mitch Marner in Toronto. Number one, he's got the full no movement clause. But like everything I hear, he wants a deal that'll make him the highest paid player on the team. And that's more than Austin Matthews, because the cap goes up. And right now, percentage of the cap is a big thing. And I mean, whether people like it or not, he's not going anywhere, right? So I think the similarities stop at the point where Marner's in that same realm as Rantanen, but the Leafs can't do anything about it. Again, it gets back to the point of giving these guys full no movement clauses.
Yeah, you're completely hamstrung. You can't do
Yeah.
anything. The guy's in the driver's seat, and it's kind of annoying. But you can't blame Mitch Marner for that. He's looking out for himself. He sees it from his own point of view. He believes in himself and says, I am going to help win this team the Stanley Cup. This team's better with me on it. You can pay me this because this is what I'm worth. This is my body of work. You can see it. Here's the comparables. You can do all that. I don't blame him for it one bit. I would do the same thing. But it's the organization's, it's up to them to decide, okay, but the position that we've put ourselves in with these players and what we've seen and the history that we have, do we continue on this path? That's their deal. Like we've just said, they have constructed this team to put a lot of eggs in these baskets of these high octane players. Is it the formula that's going to win? Have we seen enough to realize, no, we have to balance our team a little bit more? We can't do that. Therefore, the only one that we can, I mean, we've had this conversation during the Willie contract and during the Matthews contract, and it's just where we sit right now. The last guy to talk about is Mitch. He's the guy that's coming up for renewal. Are you going to continue on this path? Do you believe in it? And we've seen, under Shanahan, a lot of playoff series and not a lot of wins. So you just have to decide, are we going to continue on this path, or do we need to break it up and spread it out? If so, you need to do something with Mitch. It's just the reality of the business. I'm not knocking Mitch for him wanting the bag or for him thinking he's worth this or his comparables. Hell, your career is short. You do what you can and you make what you can. That's the reality of it. It's just, there's two sides to the story.
Patience is a virtue. There's no doubt about that. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. That's NATION, NATION. Simple bet for me tonight. Give me Connor McDavid back from his 3-game suspension over a 1.5 against Seattle.
Oh, yeah. Why not 1.5 McDavid and just parlay that with a point for Draisaitl? I mean, let's be honest here. You got to hit that. And those parlays tend to add up. So I'm going to piggyback you there. I love it.
I like the over Pittsburgh and San Jose as well. The Sharks, 6 straight games, they surrendered 4 goals or more. And, well, Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. We're waiting for the next shoe to drop with that team. I love that they want a fire sale, but like everybody, again, you talk about another team, full no movement clauses, the Pittsburgh Penguins. So guys control their own destiny there.
Yes, that is life. We're creeping towards the trade deadline. I'm excited for more hammers to drop.
That was just Rantanen was a different level. Nevertheless, we'll leave it there. You're back in the mix on Wednesday when we're going to preview the Leafs and the Wild. Just a 2-game week this week for the Maple Leafs. Some R&R, which is good news considering all the injuries. I believe John Tavares is back skating, which is excellent news. But awaiting more word on Pacioretty, Nyes, Dewar goes on IR over the weekend. Hakanpää, Stoli, the goalie's close to a return. So lots to discuss over the next week. Coming up tomorrow, Carter Hutton's going to be in the saddle, and Bruce Boudreau is going to drop by the show tomorrow.
Gabby, that's good, man. Looking forward to it. I will see you on Wednesday.
Sounds good. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to producer Vic. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk tomorrow. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.